The Wild Robot is one of the best films of the year, and it definitely will get some Oscar consideration when it comes to the best animated film of the year, but also this movie is a tearjerker as well, so let's talk about it. Now, this will be a spoiler-free review, but as always, if you want to see what I gave this movie out of 10, head over to my shorts, TikTok, or Instagram and check out my one-take movie review on this movie. But without further ado, let's talk about The Wild Robot. So this movie is directed by Chris Sanders, and he is known for doing movies like Lilo and Stitch and How to Train Your Dragon, so I guess it's no surprise that this movie turned out as good as it was. But I will say the trailers did not do this movie justice at all, because when I was watching the trailers before this movie came out, I was very much like, maybe I go see that, maybe I don't. But long story short, it was really nothing special in the trailers. But after seeing this movie, I can definitely say this movie is a must watch. So this movie follows Lupita Nyong'o's character, who is named Roz, who is a helper robot that crash lands on this island that's full of animals. And as she tries to find her way back home and find where she belongs, she runs into this young baby gosling, and she forms this mother-son relationship with him and essentially has to teach him to eat, swim, and fly by the time of the migration of the rest of the flock. And while she's doing this, she also forms relationships with Pedro Pascal's character named Fink and all the other animals on the island. Starting things off with the good, I of course have the animation. Now, the visuals in this are just downright beautiful throughout this entire thing. There are tons of shots in this movie where you're just gonna sit back and say, wow. They created this vibrant, colorful world that felt fresh and looks pretty different from a lot of the animation we get today. I mean, it literally looks like someone just took a paintbrush and just painted a bunch of these scenes on the screen. And this animation really shines when the seasons start to change in this movie, because this is a movie that takes place over all 4 seasons. So we get to see the colors of the fall and then that pure white of the winter, and it just looked beautiful no matter what season it was in this movie. Then when we got to more of the action scenes that were near the end of the movie, it was super smooth and just looked great. I can't say enough good things about this animation. It truly enhanced the movie in every way and is a big part of why this movie is just so good. Next up for the good, I have the voice acting, and man, I did not realize how stacked this cast actually was until the credits rolled, and I think everyone did a great job in this thing. I mean, this movie had Lupita Nyong'o, Pedro Pascal, Stephanie Hsu, Mark Hamill, Ving Rhames, and Catherine O'Hara. But easily the star of the show was Lupita Nyong'o as Roz, and she did a great job at bringing her to life. There was so much emotion and sincerity in her voice that really helped form the character of Roz. She really got lost in her role, and that's a good thing as a voice actor, because that means I didn't hear Lupita Nyong'o's voice, I heard Roz's voice as a character. And I can also say the same thing about Pedro Pascal, who played Fink in this movie as well. Their relationship was a big part of this film, and their performances helped build that relationship and also made their characters extremely likable and easy to cheer for. Next up, I have the story and just overall messaging of this film. Now, I think this is the strongest part of this movie. This film told a story about parenthood, found family, and belonging, and I think it just did it in a beautiful way. This thing absolutely pulls on your heartstrings, and there are so many heartwarming and emotional moments packed into this thing all the way through, especially at the end of the movie. We get to see our trio of main characters in Roz, Bright Bill, and Fink go on similar journeys, as essentially they are all outcast in this movie looking for belonging, and they find that family and belonging amongst one another, or as Roz would put it, they become more than their programming. But where this story gets super emotional is the relationship between Roz and the young gosling that she adopts named Bright Bill. Roz learns that there's really no playbook to being a parent. You kind of just make it up as you go and do the best you can, and you really see that throughout this entire movie, and it leads to some pretty wholesome moments along the way. But also, I think that's something that a lot of parents will be able to relate to when they take their kids to go see this movie. This storyline of Roz learning how to be a parent leads into probably one of my favorite parts of the film, and that's when Roz was teaching Bright Bill how to fly. It was one of the most wholesome moments of this film, and then you add the amazing soundtrack slash score of this movie over that entire sequence, and man, it was just a blast to watch that part of the film. But at the end of the day, this is one of those stories that I think everyone will be able to relate to at least one or two things in this movie, especially parents. And finally, for the good, I have the humor. Now, I really like the humor in this. It was mainly family friendly, but there was also some dark humor in there as well, surprisingly enough, that definitely made me laugh out loud a couple of times. I mean, you'll literally just be watching this sweet, heartwarming scene in this movie, and then it'll drop a joke and have you asking a question like, man, is that joke okay to be put in this kid's movie? But overall, this movie has plenty of laughs while also holding together a really beautiful story as well. Moving on to the so-so, and the only thing I have here, and this is a minor problem in this movie, is it kind of felt like the main plot of this movie ended halfway through the film. So in the beginning of the movie, it was all about getting Bright Bill to eat, swim, and fly in time so he can migrate with the rest of the flock when that time comes. But this storyline literally finishes like halfway through the movie, so you get to that point where he kind of leaves with the flock to migrate, and it's kind of like a, well, what now moment, because that's what we've been focusing on for the entirety of the film so far. So immediately after that moment, it kind of felt like we were in the epilogue of the film for just a second there until the final act kicked in. However, during those moments, the story does kind of shift more to Roz and her really finding her belonging now that Bright Bill is gone on his migration. But even with this movie shifting its focus, it still does a really good job at showing the importance of letting go and trusting that your kid will be okay in the real world. So at the end of the day, I guess this isn't really that big of a deal because they still did a phenomenal job in that part of the movie that kind of felt like an epilogue to that main storyline of the beginning. And finally, getting into the bad, and let's be honest, there wasn't much bad in this movie at all. I could be nitpicky and pick out little minor things with the plot that really had no effect on the story at all, but I'm just not going to do that because this movie was just that good, and at the end of the day, those little minor things really didn't matter at all because they did such a good job with this movie and story overall. So with that said, The Wild Robot is one of the best movies of the year in my opinion. It's a heartwarming story about found family that is packed with great voice acting and tons of emotional and heartwarming moments. It has beautiful animation and will definitely hit you right in your feels. So this movie is one that I 100% recommend. Those are my thoughts on The Wild Robot. Be sure to let me know what you thought of the movie down in the comments, and as always, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, get your Eazy Apparel at shopeasyapparel.com. God bless, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.